Have you ever walked out on someone in the middle of a date? If yes, why? Story 1, it was more at the beginning of the date. He picked me up. The first thing he said to me was, "You really don't look good. Can you go change?" I said, "Sure," and went back inside, took off my makeup, put on my pajamas, and got out the takeout menus. A few minutes later, he comes knocking at the door and seemed genuinely surprised that I didn't want to continue the evening with him. Edit, hey, thank for the gold. A few of you have inquired about what I was wearing. I just want to clear the air. I looked damn good. I was wearing a dark blue dress, black strappy heels. Hair was curled. Makeup on. He was just a. Story 2, yes, it still stands out so vividly in my mind. It's probably too late for this, but we went to grab some food before a film at a fish taco place in between us. I ordered some tacos and a beer. She ordered some tacos, a water, a side of rice, and side of salsa. So the meal comes, and she just stared at it wide-eyed. The salsa was on top of the rice. She looked at the waitress and really harshly said she ordered a side of rice and side of salsa. Fair enough, I guess, outside of the harsh bit, but the waitress took it back politely enough. A few minutes later, the waitress brings out the rice with a side of salsa, and, again, she looked at the waitress and really harshly said she ordered a side of rice and a side of salsa. She noted that the kitchen had only just scooped the salsa off of the top of the rice, so she had it sent back. Finally, another rice and side of salsa come out from the kitchen. The waitress puts it down on the table very, very politely. I have no idea how she even managed that at this point, and asked the woman I was with if this was okay. The woman looked at it and said, "This is perfect. Thank you," and then immediately, and in front of the waitress, dumped the side of salsa on top of the rice. I stood up and left. TLDR, don't go on a date with a nutter. Story 3, beginning of the date. Actually, he picked me up. I got in the car, and he passed me a breathalyzer. He says, "I had some wine while I was waiting for you to come out. Can you blow on this so I can start the car and nope the out of there?" Oh, adventures on online dating. Story 4, in college, I went out with a big shot lawyer who kept pestering me to have dinner with him. He came into the bar where I worked every day till I said yes. At dinner, he ordered escargot and tried to force me to eat one, sticking the forkful in my face repeatedly. I was literally squirming my head around trying to get him to stop. When he did, he put the fork down and said, apparently to himself, why do you keep going for Brooklyn lower class trash?" I seriously didn't know what to do. I was only 18 and I was furious. It was a classy place and not in my neighborhood. I couldn't bring myself to go off on him like I wanted to. I got a lot for my accent in college. I went upstate, and I was home for the summer and really battered by being teased and insulted for how I spoke. So I went to the ladies' room in shocked rage, and on the way the waiter said, "Man, that guy is a douchebag." I said, "Is there a back door?" We were nowhere near the subway, and I had no idea if I would find a cab or if I could afford one. Even the waiter handed me a 20 and said, "Go to the Irish bar down the street, and he'll meet you there in a couple of hours. Ask for Jack." He's my brother, so I did, and Jack was like my own family. And I ended up with that waiter for years. He was shot and killed by a random bullet during someone else's gunfight. I never got over him and miss him to this very day. The lawyer had his bald, now fat face plastered on buses and in the subway last time I was in the city. I always looked at his picture a bit fondly because he found me the best boyfriend ever. Edit 052015. No, I have not allowed my story to be published on sites such as Uproxx. Just check in and edit. Thanks to everyone who read my story, and for the gold too. A little maudlin drinking and a laptop proved surprisingly cathartic. Your empathy and sympathy are very touching and really mean a lot to me. I used to write quite a bit and was even published years ago. You all have inspired me to maybe try expressing myself again. Thanks, edit. I wanted to post a picture of us, but I don't think his family would be comfortable. It would break their hearts after all this time. Thank you again. I feel like I was talking to a group of good friends, and your support really means the world to me. Story 5, yes. 33F. Third date. He was a 34M. On our walk to dinner, he directly asked if I would be interested in losing weight because he was attracted to the physique of tall and very thin models. He even recommended several books and diet plans during this talk. So very nice of him. I am 52, 120 pounds. Apparently, I need to buy one of those medieval stretching machines while I am at it. Holy nope. I kindly excused myself to the train before we got to the restaurant. I have since gotten about 10 emails apologizing and telling me about his daddy issues. I have ignored all. Wow. Just wow. He's a Redditor. I hope he sees this. Yup. Was on a first date with someone in a restaurant, and the server was a bit slow because it was really, really busy. My date complained about the retarded waiter. I just left. Story 6, twice. 1. Went out on a date with a guy who I quickly learned had backward notions about disabled people and women. I'm a deaf woman. This was a while ago. So in paraphrasing here, he said something to the effect that women should stay at home, be pregnant, etc., the classic. And he expressed surprise that I, as a deaf person, did not have a carer to help me do day-to-day stuff and drive me around the town, and he thought all handicapped people should be put in institutes. I'm not really sure why he asked me out in the first place. He certainly knew I was deaf. Anyway, I don't feel like it's my job to educate people that disabled people are usually capable of taking care of themselves. I told him I didn't think that it'd work out, and excused myself to a nice class clown type guy. We got along well, and he made me laugh, which I liked, so when he asked me out, I said yes. Got to dinner, and when we were nearing the end, he admitted that he didn't have enough money. I offered to pay. It happens, college broke, yada yada. He said no, and insisted that we dine and dash. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. Found the waitress, told her what he was planning, apologized profusely, paid for our dinners and tip, and left. Considered not paying for him, but didn't want to stick her with his meal. Story 7, 16 years old, taking a girl to her prom. We were meeting her friends for dinner before the dance, and I took a wrong turn, and we ended up being 10 minutes late. She was pissed and wouldn't stop being about it at dinner in front of her friends. So when we were arriving at the dance, I pulled up to the curb and told her I was leaving, that I wasn't going to put up with that. Hung out with a different girl later that night. Ended up marrying her. Story 8, oh yes, blind date. This was years ago, but I won't forget this guy. My well-meaning cousin set this one up. Was supposed to be a dinner and a movie date. Pretty typical stuff. He picks me up and looks mildly annoyed. I greet him happily and attempt to engage in conversation. He seems very distracted. We get to the restaurant, and he pulls this red wig from his back seat and asks in complete seriousness if I wear it. I stare at him in confusion. No idea where this is going. He goes on to explain he's trying to make his ex-girlfriend jealous and has been telling everyone he's dating a redhead. I'm a brunette. He was unhappy I wore my hair down, as that would mean it would take longer to pin up under the wig. I step out of the car, walk to the bathroom in the restaurant, and call my friend who is my emergency bailout. She arrives. I get in her car and leave. Never saw him again. Story 9. Not maliciously, I'm a recovering heroin addict, and when we're sitting down at the table, I noticed her gnarly tracks. I told her I'd been clean for 3 months, and this wouldn't be good for me. She was really embarrassed. When I was leaving, I paid for 2 more gin and tonics for her at the bar. Story 10. Went on a date with a girl who freaked out on me in the car. When I was describing my life in the state, I had just moved from screaming at me at one point that if I liked it so much that I should move back there. I sucked it up and went into the restaurant with her anyway. She proceeded to pound shots of tequila and ordered one of the most expensive items on the menu. I excused myself to the bathroom, noped the out of there, and unplugged my phone from the wall while I went to watch Cowboy Bebop. Story 11. I was telling her a story, and she starts staring at her phone and giggling. I asked who it was. Just a guy. I wonder how long it took her to figure out I left, because as I walked outside, I looked back and she was still laughing at her phone. Story 12. We went to see X-Men 2. She brought a laser pointer and pointed it at the screen. I told her to stop. She did it one more time. I got up and had her removed by an usher. I don't know how she got home. Edit, I stayed through the rest of the movie, so I guess I wasn't the one who walked out. Story 13. I had been out with a guy a couple of times, and he invited me over for a movie date. First time I had ever seen him in shorts. Nazi tattoo that he had given himself on his leg. No thanks, I left. Edit, since so many people are saying it could have been a peace symbol, it was the SS logo, not a swastika. Story 14. He was a nice guy. The date was going fine. Till halfway through the movie, he tried to slip his hand up my skirt. Hadn't even gone to first base, tried skipping all the way to third. I got up, told him I was leaving, and he followed me out to the lobby, screaming at me for being a tease and a prude. Security stopped him and told him he needed to leave me alone or they'd call the police on him. Then one of the men working security asked how I was getting home. When I told him I had to walk, he convinced the theater manager to let someone drive me home. It all ended well, but the idiot was surprised that I said no to a second date. Story 15. She only lasted about 10 minutes and wouldn't stop talking about her ex, how they shared a dog, how they ate lunch together every day, how he got her an awesome job, how he had a bunch of stuff in her basement, how he got off by peeing on her. Well, gotta go, work is calling me. Yeah, my phone was on vibrate, but it is an emergency or something. I had a girl out for lunch at Panera first date, keeping things light, and we were trying to have a conversation. Emphasis on trying. She was drop-dead gorgeous, but holy helix, she was, and still is, the dumbest I have ever met in my life. I could barely talk to her about anything without her going, huh? And turning her head to the side, I snapped when I told her my mom's name was Hannah, and she responded, Hannah, you mean like a cat, understand? She had been saying like that for a solid hour. I'm not one to give up on anybody I've gone on second dates with, girls I had a rough first date with. She just kept roadblocking any attempt I had a conversation with her by saying dumb. Story 16. I've posted this before a few times. He said that if I have family history of cancer, he wasn't interested in going on any more dates. For one, I do for two. The tone he said it in was not only rude but concerning. It was just dinner. I didn't even say I wanted another date or that I had some actual feelings for him. He did end up asking me out again months later, but I declined. I also found out he had gotten skin cancer. Story 17 ID been talking to this guy on a dating site for a while, and he certainly seemed cool enough, so I decided to go watch a movie at his house one night. When I got there, he was 5 inches shorter than described on his profile, and had a nerdy, high-pitched voice, think Urkel, but not quite as bad. We walked into his house, which I quickly learned was actually his family's home, and went to his downstairs bedroom. It was tiny, had no windows, and was covered in empty potato chip bags and dirty clothes. You couldn't see the floor. He also had dinosaur sheets on a twin bed, and one of those anime body pillows. I noped the out. Story 18, take her to a nightclub. She proceeds to get wasted. Club is full of creepy Middle Eastern guys. She apparently had a thing for Middle Eastern guys, as I am one. She knows like all of them. Literally every 5 minutes, she goes up to some random Middle Eastern guy and starts chatting him up, flirting, touching, etc. They are all her friends. It makes sense that she wouldn't know these guys because she co-owned a bar herself, but still, it's weird. I'm bored and a little offended, but I feel like I can't leave because she is wasted and I feel responsible for her. She asked me to take her to the bathroom, asked me to have with her in the bathroom. I say no because there's a long line of people waiting who would yell at us. We leave the bathroom. She makes a beeline for another creepy Middle Eastern friend. They start chatting. I'm sitting there looking a third wheel. Guy pulls out his wallet and hands me 60 and says, "Here, I've never had a blonde before." Trying to not flip the out. I look at her and ask her why is he offering me money. She can't answer. She's too drunk. I'm barely hiding my disgust. I ask her to leave. She says no, she wants to talk to her friend. I leave. FYI, I don't think she was a hooker. She had a respectable professional job. I think she just hung out with really creepy guys. Story 19, Lemon Law, the last date. I went on, met online, texting was great, very similar sense of humor between us. But in person, she was really cute, but way bubbly and ADHD. Wanted to dance around in the bar. She picked instead of talk and get to know each other like we had discussed. I bailed about 20 minutes in, and it was amiable. Yeah, this isn't going to happen. We are way different. Friends, though, for sure. You're hilarious, and I want you to come on my birthday next week. Story 20, after she forcibly kissed me by surprise with extremely drunken beer breath, and I nearly vomited in her wide, open mouth that shed suction onto mine, I realized the evening had reached its high point, and there was no further need to participate in the festivities. Plus, I knew she'd be sober the next morning, while I'd still want to vomit. Story 21, not gonna lie. After all the failed Tinder dates I've been on, I was checking to make sure no stories about me were on here. I finally feel like a winner. Story 22, sort of. I was on a second date with this guy, and he chose to take me to a fried chicken joint. The guy was nice and all, but I was getting the idea we were very different people, and I just didn't have time to waste. It was my senior year of college. I had 2 theses to write, honors and BFA, as well as a job, a campus magazine to run, and an internship. Being as I met him around 10 p.m., I wasn't hungry, and told him I'd just get a drink. He got really upset and insecure about, starting demanding. I just admit I didn't like his restaurant choice. Just admit he up. I insisted it was fine, I just wasn't hungry, but he wouldn't believe me and basically was having a huge pity party for himself before my eyes. Midway through, these 3 preppy college guys come in, fall down drunk, and start making a ruckus, trying to start fights with other patrons though they're too drunk to even see straight. I found this hilarious. My date thought it was dangerous and told me not to look at them. I was exhausted from my day and realized I had zero future with this guy. Better to end it now. Normally I would have stayed till the end, but I had just had it. Told him I was leaving. He followed me to the subway whining about how he thought I was going to stay over that night. Kept trying to guilt trip me into staying over up until the train came. Story 23, yep. He made me cry after he kept bantering me. But he was just I took my shoes off, we were at his house, and he exclaimed, "OH my God, you've got flat feet." Not impressed, his house was weird as too. His parents had a camera in the living room to see who he brought back, but head turned it around. I asked to be driven back after like an hour. Edit to top it off, he told me I had an attitude problem. Edna K laughed one on a date with a French guy. Early on, and in a thick accent, he said, "Look, I want you," and not in the nice way, in the penetrable way, no. Story 24, I saw on my GFS phone out of the corner of my eye. Saw her ex-BFS name at the top of her phone. The stupid was sending nudies to her ex from the bathroom on our date. Suddenly, I had to go to the bathroom, too, only I didn't come back. Story 25, TLD roommate, set me up on date with frat guy. I ditch him after he reveals his Robin Thicke-esque douchiness. In my freshman year of college, my roommate was this former cheerleader, the stereotypical blonde, vaguely country type. She was very attractive and pretty chill, so there were always a ton of guys after her. One time she had one of her frat brothers over to study, and he asked me out immediately afterward to their frat's party that weekend. It sounded like fun, so the 4 of us went as a double date. Fast forward a couple hours, and my roommate is completely wasted and my date is almost as bad. My roommate's boyfriend and I are basically drunk sitting them and trying to enjoy the party, yay, for higher tolerances. My date is being so obnoxious and whiny. The two beer had a better personality. Then he drops the bomb he was obsessed with my roommate, and thought that Head used me to make her jealous, but since that wasn't working, Head decided to settle for me, since Head have better chances with a nerd girl like me. And then tried to kiss me. I walked out and ran into my roommate and her boyfriend. The three of us got a ride back to the dorms, leaving the date behind. Story 26, long story short, I was 22 and he was 28, and he asked me to meet him at his house as a halfway point to the restaurant. Turned out to be his parents. He wasn't ready for the date because he was finishing up work on his laptop. After waiting 30 minutes, found out he was playing WoW. Said he would finish up soon, waited another 20 minutes, and threatened to leave. He tried getting intimate. I asked for the bathroom to freshen up, left, and he called me 4 times within 5 minutes asking where I went. Edit at the time, I was sitting on the end of his bed watching TV while he played WoW. When I threatened to leave, he started complimenting me by saying that I had a nice body and was pretty, etc. I ignored him until he asked me to look at him. When I did, I saw that he had his hand down his pants and stuck his pelvis towards me. Then he said those magical words, "Want to it?" I thought he was joking until he asked a second time. I asked him to give me a second to freshen up in the bathroom. Then I made a beeline for the back door and never looked back. Story 27. So after she gotten shit-faced and called up Ray, her dealer, to order some coke to do in the bathroom, I figured this first date had nowhere to go but down, and that I needed to get her on her train back to New Jersey before she ended up sleeping in Penn Station. Trouble is, well, 2 problems actually. First, she kept trying to get back to the bar and threatening to walk out into traffic because she was so drunk and despondent that she no longer wanted to live. So that was dramatic, but second, she was kind of into being spanked, like a lot into it, and she wanted to be spanked right there on the street in front of God and everybody. Well, this is right across from the police station, as you might know, and there are cops everywhere, and she's begging me to spank her and threatening that if I don't, she'll walk out in front of trucks, so if I spank her, ITLL be a show for the cops. And if I don't, then I'm going to have to physically restrain her. And if a cop sees me holding her down, both of our nights will get a lot more interesting than they already were. So I spanked her, bent her over on the street, and gave her 5 quick ones. She seemed satisfied, got on her train, and I never saw her again. The cops seemed bemused, but apparently spanking your drunk, coked up date on 33rd Street isn't cause for alarm. Story 28. So I pick up a girl I work with this past Saturday. Actually, when I get there, I notice she is not acting like she normally did at work. She was super energetic, not a bad thing. Her conversations were all over the place. She at one point was even talking to herself in the car, let out some pretty nasty farts, and crying over some problem she wouldn't tell me about. We were supposed to be heading to a party at a friend's apartment, but she needed to go pick up something first. I was fine with this until she told me what it was. When I finally convinced her to tell me what we were going to get, she told me some crystal meth, and that we were picking it up from her ex-boyfriend who doesn't want to meet me, so I'll have to park somewhere and let her walk to meet him. I played off how furious I was until I took her back to her house to brush her teeth because she had not done this yet, or put on makeup, or fixed her hair. As soon as we arrived at her house, I told her I needed to leave, got the out of there, and had a great night at that party. Haven't spoken to her at work since. Story 29. The bait and switch with old online pictures. I took the time in my profile to say that I work very hard to stay in shape, and while not expecting a 100 equal effort from a partner, they have to at least give some. Girl uses pictures that have to be at least 3 years old because she was pretty cute in them. I get to the restaurant and am met with someone who wouldn't fit in a rowboat. I stick around for dinner anyway. Her personality sucked, paid the bill at the bar, and noped all the way home. Story 30. A nice guy friend blindsided me by inviting me out for a casual dinner that turned out to be an elaborately planned date at a fancy restaurant, during which he poured his heart out and started to cry a little bit. For context, he had asked me out once before, and the answer was a polite but firm no. He tried to give me a rose and accused me of hurting his feelings when I said no, even though I mentioned several times that I'm severely allergic to them. I had a boyfriend of nearly 2 years at the time. My boyfriend was his close friend and former roommate, who at the time was studying abroad for a semester. When he started trying to convince me the guy I was actually dating didn't really love me, I stood up, put 10 on the table for the cocktail I had ordered and chugged as soon as I realized what was up, and walked away. Story 31. Went on a single date with a guy recently. He had been extremely nice, seemed smart and funny. I thought it would be a good thing. When he showed up to pick me up, he brought takeout and said he thought a movie night might be better. Honestly, I was pretty okay with this. But then when he came in, he basically tried to get into my bedroom within the first 10 seconds. And when I said no, he goes, "Oh, come on. I've seen the stuff you used to post. I know you're easy." I kicked him out, told him never to speak to me again, and am pretty much done dating for a while. As background, a neighbor outed me as a GW poster. I deal with douchebags pretty much daily. No, I did not have anything still up. Story 32, he was a bit old for me, but I thought I'd give him a chance. He was super funny, and pictures seemed cute. Showed up in a pack. Told me about how he hated his life, and had just been fired from his job at Hot Topic, and told me about his dream to trap unintelligent people in a Mystery Mansion-style house. I finished my drink and told him that this wasn't working. Laugh, cried my way home in disbelief. Story 33, he was incredibly nice and smart when I met him online, and seemed super respectful, nothing odd at all. I agreed to meeting him on a date a few days later after messaging back and forth. Everything is going good. We are having yogurt. When he suddenly breaks out telling me how we're going to live our future kids' names, what we're going to hang on the wall of our house, our wedding vows, our pet names, everything down to how we're going to make out that night after I agreed to be his girlfriend. As nicely as I could, I told him that was super creepy and way too soon to be talking about that. God doesn't think it's odd at all. I proceeded to nope out of there as fast as I could. Edit frozen yogurt, like it Minchies. Story 34, he said, it's so cool that you drink whiskey straight. My girlfriend won't drink it at all. It was our third date, and I did not know he had a girlfriend. Story 35, I stayed for the full date, cause it was at my favorite place. She was so stupid. All she would talk about was how she ate salmon a lot, and that's why she had good hair. She said this 4 times. Then she told me in a way that made me think she only discovered this fact earlier that day. Did you know salmon is a fish? I just kept nodding. She would also say this 3 times like I didn't believe her. Friends worked at the place, and I tried so hard to get their attention to help me escape. Story 36, went on a date with a girl I met online. We went to County Bar, and it just so happened to be her birthday. She went with a few friends, and I met them, and they said we could have some one-on-one time to get to know each other. We picked out a booth in the corner of the bar and started talking. The entire time, she had this sad, depressed look on her face when she kept telling me she was fine. Finally, about 30 minutes into forced conversation, she starts crying. I asked again if everything was okay, and she said she was fine. She just gets emotional when she drinks. Her friend kind of check on her and start giving me some asking what I did. She doesn't tell them anything, just keeps crying. I look like a now, and she said she needed to go to the bathroom to clean up. I close my tab and walk out of there as fast as I can. She texts me asking where I went. I don't respond. She then sends a novel of text to me saying how crazy she is and needs someone to help her, and that she will meet tonight if I come back. Red flag stage 5 clinger alert. Story 37, met this gal on Match.com, and she seemed nice enough. Her pictures were 1999 digital camera quality, which was my first yellow flag of caution. She described herself pretty normal, but she had a small medical condition that she wants to be upfront about. We text back and forth, agree to meet up in Viola. It's a dinner date. When I get there, she's late by about 20 minutes, but when I see this gal with her friend enter the restaurant and walk towards me, I have this sinking feeling of, oh God, please don't let that be her. Edit, this was a reaction to her small medical condition being grossly exaggerated. Not at her appearance on the whole. I'm going to be nice here, and I describe her. She hobbled with such a bad limp that she needed a walker, yet didn't have one. Her body frame was twisted of that of an odd-shaped bow, an arrow, with her hip jutting to one side, and her head and feet contorted in an arc the opposite way. She spotted me and waved. Kid you not, like how Forrest Gump waved to Lieutenant Dan. Edit, not a small medical condition. Hence the description. Sorry to those Redditors who have deemed me in for my observations. We sit down and greet each other while her medical assistant friend sits nearby at another table. This gal is friendly enough and has a great outlook on life. She had been through a horrible childhood disease that left her body deformed. I was actually enthralled by her tale and took a mild interest in her attitude about the whole thing. Her description of small medical condition wasn't an issue with me anymore because she really appeared to be friendly, positive, and a great person. That is, until she told me the deal breaker. Due to my illness, I'm unable to have of any sort, and doing so could cause permanent injury. The words were one thing, but it was how she said it, and the finality of it left such a nasty impression on me. She then started telling me about all the horrendous thoughts she had about people who have, and how it destroys marriages. People, families, because men can't control themselves, blah, blah, blah. Serious man, hating to the extreme. It had become awkwardly uncomfortable listening to her go on and on and on and on about men being a holies and pigs. Thankfully, I told her ahead of time that my evening could be cut short due to a prior engagement. Yes, it was legit. My niece had just been born the day earlier, so I faked a text and used that as an excuse to leave earlier than intended. Edit, I emailed her later that evening that I did indeed have a nice time with her. Enjoyed her story and company, but we weren't compatible due to the intimacy reasons, all of which was true. Story 38, I went on a date with a friend of a friend. We went out to the beach, talked for quite a while, got some drinks, and were eating dinner. It seemed to be a real good time, but she was always on her mobile. I had made a couple funny comments based on high scores and other phone-related themes, but she was either clueless, indifferent, or having a bad time. Midway through dinner, and in the middle of her text conversation with her bestie, I dropped a 20 on the table and told her to enjoy her texting. My friend hit me up a couple days later and asked why I was to her. After I explained about the phone bit, my friend laughed and said that was why her last boyfriend dumped her. TLDR, walked out on a chick since she couldn't put her phone down. Story 39, oh goodness, yes. And I'll always feel guilty. This is an ode to my younger years when I clearly had daddy issues. I was 18. He was close to my mother's age. We had gone out once or twice before. He wanted to go to South by Southwest, big music film festival in Austin, Texas. I agreed to go as a friend. We drive down together, check into the hotel, and get our goodie bags and badges. The goodie bag had condoms in it, and he said, we will be using these later. I was skeeved out. We go to a few shows, then go to Lily Allen at Stubbs. They had a large screen on stage that you could text and have your text displayed on. He texted something very overly attached, and I realized in that moment how foolish I was to go 3 hours from home with this man more than twice my age, and to stay in a hotel with him regardless of 2 beds, and what had been discussed prior. He went to the bathroom, and I left. I walked, and called my cousin who lives in Austin. He sent a friend to pick me up. We rushed to the hotel to grab my bag, scary as, and then I had a really fun-filled week with them until I was able to find a ride back home. Story 40, surprisingly only once, and I didn't know I was on a date until it was too late to save anyone from embarrassment. When I was 19, I had a very weird experience with my childhood friends who were in toxic relationships and were in love. One was dating a 250-pound girl with a 4-year-old kid. Another was dating a girl who left her ex for him, but was having second thoughts. Together, they wanted me to date anyone to go on double dates and help them sort out their awkwardness around other functional couples. So I went on a blind date, a chubby short girl my age who for some reason was enamored with me. I'm an average-looking dude that's skinny, so I DK what she really wanted from me. To save this story from having too many details, hey Ray, something she did to make me say WTF is going on in this girl's life. When we first got in Carnival Fair thing, she wanted me to pay for her, because guys should pay for the girls. Denied. When we were walking around looking for rides, she would always grab a snack to eat in the line and try to share it with my friends, but not their girlfriends. She kept complimenting my eyebrows. She borrowed my phone to peek through my texts and read the conversation I had with the first girl there, my lesbian best friend. Icing on the cake. Goes up to ghetto hooligans and flirts, winking at me and laughing. At this point, I thought she was weird as, but okay, when my buddy told me this was a date, I snuck out of one of the rides to go to lesbian best friend's house. I get a call at around midnight from my brother telling me my friends and this girl are looking for me at my house. No girlfriends in sight. That means they dropped off the other girls and came to my house to give me a blessing to consummate the date, as they said later on this girl went on to stalk me in school, without my knowing that she went to the same college as me. Last I heard, she had with one of my childhood friends' ghetto accomplice. The end.